ANBERNIC has been on a roll recently, throwing more handhelds out the door than I've had hot dinners. The first one of the year was the original RG35XX, a handheld that I personally didn't like too much due to its average performance and terrible shoulder buttons. However, almost 12 months later, ANBERNIC have revisited it and created the RG35XX Plus, which focuses on more power and better shoulder buttons. It's as if they're listening to their community for once. This is a device that I find hard to hate. At just $65, it's positioned competitively against many other devices on the market, such as the Powkiddy RGB30, and I would even say the Retroid Pocket 2S, which is actually $30 more expensive. This is a pocket-friendly device built for newcomers to the scene who don't want to faff around with setup and those who want Dreamcast performance under $70. This thing is impressive. The RG35XX Plus is a great size and fits in the palm of my hand perfectly. It can fit in your pocket for sure, but you may get some funny looks as it's much thicker than a typical smartphone. The handheld has been designed to look like a mini version of the original Game Boy, with focus on the grey shell, purple buttons, subtle blue text, and the infamous slanted speaker grille at the bottom right corner, which I adore. They do offer other colours such as transparent black and white, should the grey not tickle your fancy. Half of the face is taken up by the 3.5-inch IPS display that has a resolution of 640 by 480, making it perfect for retro games. And they've even kept the bezel small to keep it sleek and modern, because nobody likes bezels in 2023, right? Below that you will find your buttons. At the top you have your menu button that quickly pops up the main RetroArch menu in-game, allowing you to save your game, load states, change settings, and simply organize your games or get back to the main console menu. This makes it very easy for newcomers to get to grips with. The D-pad used is one of the best on the market, and if you've read our other ANBERNIC reviews, you'll know that I'm a big fan of this D-pad. It's strong, reliable, and flexible enough for fighting games. The action buttons are fairly small and high gloss, which I don't honestly like. I respect this as a personal preference, it just means I can't snack and play on the go or they get slippery and slimy because I'm a little cretin. The start and select are at the bottom, again just like the original Game Boy. These are not rubber, they are in fact plastic and sit nicely out of the shell, making them easy to press, unlike some handhelds on the market that make it near impossible to press these ones easily. The speaker volume is nothing to shout about and is slightly obstructed, but enough to get you by. I guess this is the repercussions of designing your handheld so closely to the Game Boy DMG, but I'd still dig it. At the top you have LED lights to indicate battery life and a mini HDMI out that allows you to connect to a TV. And because it has Bluetooth, you can actually pair up a wireless controller too, allowing it to act as a portable retro console, but this can be a bit finicky. Some controllers work, some don't, so I think this does need a little bit of work still. At the sides you'll find your on-off button, a reset button, 2 SD card slots, a headphone jack, a USB-C port for charging, and your volume buttons. On the back, you'll find your 4 new shoulder buttons. Now they say new, but these are actually just new molds. They're actually really comfortable and a much needed upgrade compared to the original. So good work, ANBERNIC. This is what the community wanted. You can now get to the battery compartment too, should you want to change out the 3300 milliamp battery. The battery life is great on this device and can last up to 7 hours on one charge. However, the sleep mode does not work as well as I'd want to. It just drains far too much overnight, which is a little bit of an issue if you plan to take this on holiday and stuff, so I do recommend actually shutting down the console rather than putting it into sleep mode. All of that is wrapped up in a great quality shell with no loose components, so it feels sturdy in the hand and strong enough to take drops, scuffs and bumps in your bag when taking it on the go. Size-wise, it's great. Anything smaller and it would become a little uncomfortable for long periods of time. And any bigger, it wouldn't be pocketable. So in my opinion, it's one of the best sized handhelds you can get in a vertical format. Now let's move to performance. In terms of specs, this has a 1.5 GHz H700 quad-core ARM Cortex-A52 processor, a dual-core G3 CPU, 1 GB of RAM, a 3.5-inch IPS display, 3300 mAh battery, 5G Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and HDMI out. So all of that seems quite good on paper, but what does it do in terms of performance? The extra CPU power, the 4 times the RAM, and more battery life is a much welcome upgrade to the original device. And I would say it's actually worth upgrading if you have the original RG35XX. Well, this was rumored that it could play Dreamcast games at great frame rates, and I'm happy to confirm that this is in fact true. This can play Dreamcast games incredibly well with very little hiccups, which is great because that's typically my limit on a 3.5-inch screen. Any console newer and you're going to want a 16:9 screen at least 5 inches in size, otherwise it's just a little bit restricting on that small 3.5-inch screen, but this isn't an issue. I tested PSP emulation too, which is typically on the same level as Dreamcast, but those types of games require a much bigger screen, and I found through my testing that the larger PSP games didn't perform flawlessly. They performed well, but you will notice some lower frame rates, maybe a bit of, audio cracking, so playing around with the settings and adding frame skip and stuff should help that slightly, but it's definitely not flawless. Nintendo DS works well if you're happy to switch between screens. Game Boy Advance is perfect on a device like this. PlayStation 1 works well on a 3.5-inch screen combined with a thick D-pad, and Sega's consoles such as the Game Gear and Mega Drive look stunning thanks to the colourful display, which rounds it off with a bunch of incredible consoles in the palm of your hand for just $65. And that's what makes this a great handheld. It's affordable, it's got great build quality and good enough performance to kind of get at your DS games, your Game Boy games, your Mega Drive games, even PSP if you want to do that, PS1 and Dreamcast, which is incredible on a device of this size. However, my issue is getting into those games. The front end installed on here is downright terrible and devalues the whole console in my opinion. ANBERNIC are renowned for being lazy with the software that they install on their devices, and this is a prime example. They expect the retro gaming community to do their dirty work, and this is why many prefer Go Retroid's products as they pre-build their Android OS for newcomers where ANBERNIC does not. Don't get me wrong, the front end is incredibly easy to navigate and you could give it to a kid and they'd know exactly what to do, but it's boring. It looks outdated and it's just incredibly basic. Basic is not a word ANBERNIC wants associated with this device, as it's superb in every other field. They made a smart decision to use RetroArch, but ruined the gaming experience with a basic UI. ANBERNIC should be disappointed with themselves here, and I hope they do better in the future. In terms of adding your own ROMs, it's pretty basic too, probably because it's just text on a black background, but all you need to do is use the extra SD card slot for your SD card, add in your ROMs, and then head into RetroArch to source them. And because the menus are very simple, it's quite simple to jump into your Bluetooth and Wi-Fi settings too. So it's like a double-edged sword. It's incredibly easy. It's literally just black on white text, but for those that are like enthusiasts, I guess, it's just a little boring to have all of this incredible build quality and power to then jump into a very basic menu. But there are ways to get around it. It's likely that you can install Garlic OS on here, which is a community built UI, but that's kind of what ANBERNIC want you to do, which isn't what they should do. They should be building a flawless user interface for their almost flawless handheld, but they just don't want to do that because they want to save a bit of money and work on their next product, which, they've already got probably 7 lined up. So who knows? So there you have it, a quick review of the RG35XX Plus. It's one of the best affordable retro handhelds on the market right now, coming in at $65, which is incredibly competitive, and it can emulate everything up to Dreamcast, all on a device of this size that can fit in the palm of your hand, and it looks like a mini Game Boy. Like, what's not to love? I actually think this is probably ANBERNIC's best handheld of the year so far, which I wasn't expecting. I love it. It's a much worthy upgrade to the original, and it's going in our top list at the end of the year for sure. So subscribe for that, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.